The slides that you're seeing on the screen are a slide of two children, one that has the capability to stand and one that is seated. He's not seated because he has a choice. He's seated because he's incapable of walking. I have a question for you today. If you were asked to pick a child on the screen, which child would you pick? I don't expect an answer from you, but I'll give you the answers my community shared with me on which child they would pick and why they would pick the child. My community would pick the child standing because the child standing has the capability to bring joy to the community. The child standing has the capability for a better future, a future that he will achieve on his own. The child standing is free in a way that everything he does is independent of the community. All he needs is a little support. But the community won't pick the child seated. They won't pick the child seated because the child seated is considered a mischief and a curse according to the community. The child seated brings feelings of sadness and pity rather than feelings of joy like the child standing. The child seated is a disgrace to the community. That's what the community told me. What did I learn from these answers that I've just shared with you? I learned that people and community are flawed, regardless of one's age and capabilities. I also learned that people and community are unsupportive. This negativity that sprouts from the lack of love and support can diminish one's value, undermine one's imagination, and strip away one's most powerful possession, one's dreams. A sad reality I intimately experienced as a child at just the age of 5. I was at my cousin's house when my mother called with the exciting news. I was now to be an older brother. Memories of me playing football after school and sharing stories about my school day was all I could imagine. But the stark contrast between my expectations and reality hit hard, bringing tears filled with disgust and shame at the idea of associating myself with him, Akram. Just because he possessed an uncommon condition, cerebral palsy, I on default chose not to associate with him. I was disgusted by who he was. My hate towards Akram didn't sprout from the moment I saw him. It sprouted and was nurtured from the moment I was sent to grocery stores to buy vegetables, and the lady at the store would always talk about how those on wheelchairs, how those with disabilities were a curse to the society, how they shouldn't have a place in the world or a place in the society. That's what I learned at just the age of 5. My hate towards Akram was nurtured whenever I was walking along the streets of Kampala, and I would distance myself from those on wheelchairs or on crutches. That's where my hate sprouted from. That's where a 5-year-old ableist was nurtured. My hate towards Akram made me ignore a variety of things that explain how he came to be my brother. Next slide, please. I ignored that he was abandoned by his own biological mother at my mother's gate. I ignored that he was left lying on his side and incapable of walking due to the cerebral palsy. I ignored that he was on the verge of dying due to the severe malnutrition that he had, due to the lack of love and support that his own mother couldn't give him. I ignored that too. I knew that his life hit a dead end, and I was willing to be of support towards his survival. That's what the community nurtured me into a 5-year-old ableist. However, we as a community, did we take in Akram as a way to break free from our prejudices? Or did we dump him off like the problem his mother and the world labeled him as the curse his own mother labeled him as? We took in Akram because while it's true that people and community might be flawed, it's within humanity and community where humanity's greatest survival lies. I'm Benjamin Tumwesigye, and today I'll be offering a guide to understand the world around us as a way to be able to find our place in a world so big through small communities. Next slide. A saying from my tribe goes, "Abatingana ni batongana tiwombeka." Those who are not brothers do not build. To me, community is a brotherhood, and what we build and make of community is best of what we envision. That's what community is to me. My community, as an example, negative and filled with hate, I was nurtured into a 5-year-old herbalist. But it could be argued that it was this same community that shaped me into the benevolent individual I am today. The saying, "Abatingana ni batongana tiwombeka," is targeted towards the beast, but it's targeted towards the human beings. But the bees are a true representation of community. Community that I love to refer to as circular modes of community, where the energy is transferred from one point of the circle to the other, leaving each point stronger than it was before. That's what community is. Next to me, I have a bee suit. A bee suit that I was handed over on my first visit to a beehive. I was told to make sure every point on my body was fully covered, protecting me from insects so small that if they came together, would cause way more harm that could probably kill me. When they come together, they produce one of the sweetest things on earth, honey. When I was in the hive, it was first one bee on my suit, and in just a few minutes, I was covered in 50 or more bees, all working towards to achieve one goal, protecting the hive. Right there is the power of community. The power of when brothers come together, they build. The power when bees come together, they build. And we as human beings, when we come together, we build and form strong communities. Communities that protect us from harm, just like the bees. A similar saying that I would like to share comes from Ghana. Next slide, please. And it comes along with this. Right here is a torch. And when I put this torch together is a dish and the 3 heads. The saying from Ghana goes, "Tikoro Nkwajina." One head does not hold counsel. This is filled with 3 heads. And the 3 heads represent strength. That if I put the dish on top of one head alone, it won't be able to be capable of support. But when I put the dish on top of the 3 heads, it's in firm foundation, and that's what community is. I might put pressure onto this torch. It will still turn around and tilt, but at the end, it will still come back up in firm foundation. That's what strong communities do. But the saying from my community, "Abatingana ni batongana tiwombeka," and the saying "Tikoro Nkwajina," are all sayings that could be impossible to achieve. But this is how we navigate our daily world. This is how the world revolves. It revolves in a form of a circle. Equal energy is taken and shared back to you. A point in life when this came to me as a circular mode was when I was in school and I was bullied for having Akram as a brother. I shared this with the community, and together we brainstormed on ideas on how to stop the bullying.
Back in third quarter planning.
We shared ideas on how to stop the negativity from the bullying. Some of the ideas involved me hiding away from the bullies, and some included me fighting back. But all this could do would still leave the school community ignorant about the purpose of inclusivity. With that guidance from my mother, we reached out to a disability school in Kampala. We reached out and shared the idea of having an assembly targeted towards the purpose of inclusivity in the world. Through the assembly, the bullying was able to stop, and so was the ignorance that the children knew. The children learned that we as human beings, just like the bees, possess different talents. Take, for example, in a beehive, I can only name 3 types of bees: the worker bee, the drone bee, and the queen bee. When one of the bees is not in the hive, like the queen bee, the bees in the hive will be extinct because there will be no one to lay the eggs. If the worker bees choose to leave the hive, then the beehive will be starving because the worker bees collect the propolis that feeds the queen. That's the purpose of community. We all have different talents that we should share. I need you and you need me. I need your different talents, and that's how we navigate the world, through supporting each other and recognizing the talents we all possess. But how, like the bees and the torch from Ghana? These are simply metaphors, but how do we put the idea that they possess of community into the world, into our communities? First, we learn to love. Loving in a way that I allow you to see through me, to see authentically who I am, and to accept me for who I am. When I visited Yale for a Yale summer camp, there was a thing called family time. We were about 200 or more students who were broken into sessions, and my session was called Solving Global Challenges. But how do you solve global challenges when I don't love the person next to me, or I don't love them for who they are? But through the family time that was incorporated into the program, we shared our deepest concerns. We shared what made us human, what was special to us, and the tiny things that were of concern to us. Through this, we built the love that allowed me to see a stranger as a brother, or a stranger as a sister. That's what love is. But this was incapable without vulnerability. Vulnerability that was built on day by day through the family time. And by the end of the 2 weeks program, we were way stronger than we were before. I felt like they were more of family to me than my own brothers were. That's what love does in a community. The second part of the hive is building our mental hive. In this mental hive, the bees represent our thoughts. Thoughts that are targeted towards forming strong communities. My community, for example, negative and filled with hate, are shaped into a 5-year-old herbalist. But this same community changed perspective. We led in Akram. And through taking in Akram, we learned that our thoughts themselves play a role. We then recognized that he was incapable of family, and we were the only family that he had. Through seeing it through the scope, we then learned that Akram was all that we had and that we were all he had, and we changed our mind. We then started seeing him as a gift than a curse. And that's what changing and building our mental hives does. Through positive bees, the positive thoughts, we form stronger communities. But with negative bees, we form communities that are bound to perish, communities that are bound to fall rather than bound to build. That's what thoughts do. The third part is so far the hardest part for me: building trust. Especially, how do you build the trust when trust has been broken before? When we took in Akram, the world shut us. We were left stranded. That my mother's daycare closed, and the financial support that she had was taken away. But then a neighbor from the community took me and Akram in as a way to relieve the financial stress of her. This was trusting the community, trusting that if we took in Akram, something similar would happen to us. That's the second mode of community. We were then stronger than we were before. We spread the message about inclusivity. We spread the message about how trust builds strong communities. Without trust, we are bound to form communities that are filled with hate. But when we learn that trust shall be broken, and we learn that we ourselves are the ones to build the trust back, we are the ones to get right back up when the trust has been broken. That's when we learn to need each other. I cannot be the only person fending for strong communities. Take, for example, a hive filled with 99 bees, filled with 100 bees, and only one bee does all the work, while the other 99 are around relaxing. That would be a hive bound to perish, a hive bound to extinction. If my community decided to leave me and my mother the burden of raising Akram, we ourselves wouldn't be capable, wouldn't be motivated for the good in the world, would still do the same thing, dump him off. But when the community came together and supported each other, we then learned that yes, much as Akram was considered a curse, he's now considered a gift as a child of the family. So today, as you watch this TED Talk, let's learn to love, because through love we build the vulnerability that allows us to see people for who they are. Let us learn to lower our expectations, because if we had high expectations for Akram, like him being able to walk, then we wouldn't be capable of loving him for who he was. But when we learned that he would be able to hold a cup and feed himself, that's when we got happy. We lowered our expectations for him. Every day that he learned something new made us happy. But every day we forced him to live up to our standards, we hated him. Let us learn to trust, because without trust, we are bound to form communities that are filled with betrayal and hate. And with trust, we are able to achieve our tingana ni batongana tibombeka. Those who are non-brothers do not build. That's what community is to me. Thank you.